Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today's August 15, 2025. I want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Kenn Coplan. Where are you calling from, Kenn?
I'm here in Houston, Texas.
How cool is that? The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Oh my God, just breathing. I mean,
I love that answer.
I enjoy breathing a lot.
Breathing is one of my favorite answers. I rarely get it. What's your favorite form of information? How it comes into you?
Well, I mean, visual information is how it's my language. The written word is not for me. I
Yeah,
don't trust the written word. I trust my eyes.
amazing. Because neuroscientists say of the five major senses, that visual is the most dominant.
Sure, sure. And sound too. I mean, if we heard something, we react because it could be trying to eat us. So, but the visual cues we get really developed who we are as humans. So yeah, that makes sense.
Why do you think humans gather or collect information?
We're afraid of the dark. We're afraid of dying. Um, Somehow, I mean, why do rich people, when they start realizing they're about to die, start putting the names up on buildings? And they usually put them on art buildings too, which is an interesting thing. Why is Trump going out of his way to just the Kennedy Center? I mean, it's our that's where the knowledge is collected throughout history. Historically, we learn from the arts. The things that are left behind that have lasted throughout time are the arts, sculptures, paintings. I mean, and money too, if it's made out of gold, but it gets melted
Yeah.
down. So.
Really good, Ken. You really get. So, is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
That's a tough question. I think everything has been invented by us because we've always feared the unknown. So,
But
yeah,
like I agree with you, but just to insert really quick, eating food might be innate in humans. They feel they have to eat, but there are these things that people say they're breatharians and they only breathe. So back to your breathing. Now, yeah, is that pseudoscience or bullshit that people live on breathing? I mean,
I do not live on breath alone. I do enjoy food, but like I'm a vegetarian. I choose to eat a certain way based
yeah,
on ethics and nutrition that some other people don't. And how we
yeah,
choose to eat, it kind of describes who you are as a human being. We don't
yeah,
hunt. I mean, a handful of people still hunt.
yeah.
Some people grow their own food, but mostly we go to the supermarket and we're given choices, of what to do.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Do thoughts create emotions? Do my thoughts manifest my own emotion? Yeah. I mean, I had a very interesting childhood where I lived in my head. I um, don't want to get into all the specifics, but I had to have imaginary adventures in my head. We had three channels that usually were boring, and two, I wanted to create something I couldn't create that didn't exist, so I had to manifest that into the physical world. Using Legos and breaking toys. I never got a toy home from the toy store in one piece. It always was something else by the time we got home. And we got that
You're
way.
my you're my kind of artist, man. I really appreciate.
Cool.
So fill in the blank, Ken. I don't know what I think until I.
Make it.
Oh wow! No one says that. That's amazing.
I drove my fellow art students that I was around crazy because I'm a jokester. I like messing with people because I would make these pieces and they had to interact with them, and I didn't give them a script or tell them what to do most of the time, unless I was manipulating them into doing an action. And then they would talk about it and talk about, well, if you did this, they'd use words like if. And I'm like, no, this is a thought. This is a finished piece. I have created this thought. I've manifested this experience. I've moved on. I want to hear what you want to say about it, but
Yeah.
I don't care because I've moved on to my next piece.
Yeah.
My next project.
Well, that's the Mallarmé, the symbolist poet, said, "Don't paint the painting, paint the effect you want to
I love
have."
that. Yes. Yeah.
And you know, that's my thing. My philosophy is, once the artist makes their art, it's no longer theirs. Anyone can do anything they want with it. So, the artist say, "You're misinterpreting." It's like, so what? Are you the interpretation police?
I can't remember who did it, but somebody took a photograph in a gallery of a photograph, and they claimed it as their own. I forgot, it was
Yeah.
famous photographer. It was Frederick.
Oh, I know. There's tons of that. Yeah.
And now that new art, is it new art? Is it old art? What is it exactly? And who owns that art? Who owns the idea? I
Oh,
mean,
it's Oscar Wilde. He nailed it.
yeah,
Everything's in public domain.
yeah, yeah.
No one owns anything, but it's like, we want to claim, because they think, if you made a piece of art and you could pay your kids' tuition to college, you would feel it. If someone ripped you off, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, go make more art. But, I mean, that's a complicated thing, because that's Rauschenberg put a photo from Time magazine on his painting and then sold it for gazillion dollars, and then the photographer says, "Dude, cut me a little, send me a little check, come on."
Good artists steal, great artists. Good artists borrow. Is it something like that? Great artists steal.
That's T.S. Eliot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so really fun, Ken. This is the next one.
Oh boy.
Can humans think without language?
You have to define language, because as somebody who's mute and blind, they have a language. It's just it's your perspective of it, interacting with that person, to find the language between you two. I mean, just because you can't understand somebody doesn't mean they don't have a language. So I mean, everybody has a language. Everything has a language. It's just, are you gonna, there's always like those Star Trek shows where the two captains get put on a planet, and the one doesn't know how to speak the other person's language because they don't have their special little translators, and that's how that's how they do things. So they have to slow down, figure out what the other person is. So I mean, yeah, if that makes sense.
No, that made a lot of sense, because
Yeah.
Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is.
Yeah.
What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Communications is not one of my strong. I mean, with interaction with, say, my wife or my 7-year-old child, I've had to learn that my communications has been pretty self. Oh God, I'm trying to use one of those words all by myself.
Yeah.
Narcissistic in a way.
Yeah.
I'm a very narcissistic person when it comes to my language, because when I was a child, nobody could understand me except my parents and my sister. I kind of had my own language in a way, speech impediment, other learning disabilities that made it very hard for me to communicate with other people. So I had to find ways to communicate. So, I think that's what got me into the arts, is all these barriers I had as a child gave me strength, because I've had to look at the world in a different way that most people don't have to,
Yeah.
So, wow.
Dude, I know that interview in the Phoenix paper with you was really helpful, because, they talked about your learning disability and you just mentioned it. And my nephew they call it, he's special needs. And his sister said, no, he isn't special needs. He's special abilities.
Yes.
That's what you're special abilities. You're not special needs.
No, it's funny. I've done this one show with my about my learning disability in graduate school, artist in residence in Irvine, California, and then I had it actually through the Kennedy Center. Bring up the Kennedy Center again at the Smithsonian. Did an installation with it with other kids with other artists with disabilities, and every time I mounted it, the reaction I got was amazing from other artists that said, this was my issues. Like, it's amazing how many amazing artists had some kind of barrier, some kind of that it's not true, that it's something that went really bad. So I had a lot of stories of what could go wrong, with them never finding the arts and bad things happening to them with drugs and depression. But a lot of my fellow students were amazing artists, and they had, they couldn't read. I have a third grade spelling level, I have a master's degree. It doesn't matter. You can find your voice. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's like I always try to figure out who invented mental illness. No, I mean, they go, oh, you're mentally ill. And then for years it was like, oh, they're the shaman of the town. They're the, and then at some point we go, wait a minute, so I mean, so you're up. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
I have a question for you. Would you rather be the king or the jester, in the court?
Oh,
or
jester.
Yeah, I can tell that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and they ate all the great leftovers. I'm serious.
No, I like that. That's good. But your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Do the thoughts drive our feelings, or do the feelings drive our thoughts? Do negative thoughts, it's like anxiety. Where does anxiety come from? Is it, you have these feelings. When I make a piece of artwork, I don't know what's first. A feeling, usually it's a feeling. I'm angry, or I'm happy, or I'm sad. And that drives the intellectual pursuit of how's that going to manifest?
Yeah.
And then I start making, and I have to finish it before I die. And I'm going to die in a minute. So I have to finish it now. And that's been driving me for 30 years, and it's exhausting, but I love it. I just don't know where thoughts come from. I know they come in between my ears, but people have always wondered where my creativity comes from, and it just is. It is, and I could see the building blocks throughout my childhood and my adolescence and my adult. But at the end of the day, I just love the awe that comes out of me. I'm awed by my own creativity and thankful for it.
Yeah. Well, that's really, really beautiful and it's really articulate what you said, because you really can't separate feeling from thinking, but we think we can because we invented the words feeling and thinking. So Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. I'm like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? It's like people meditate, go, okay, now think about not thinking. And there's a bumper sticker on a car in my street. It goes, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
It's like, luckily, like, I saw a lot of artists use drugs to try to get to that place, of inspiration. And I was lucky enough where I was my own drug. I stayed at 95-cent pizza from the grocery store, and 20-pack of cigarettes and Coca-Cola was my drug in art school. And just make like that dance that she was talking about. Like, you don't think. I don't like thinking. I just like doing.
Yeah.
And I get trouble times for that.
The word dance was really appropriate, Ken, because there's an old saying that says, if you can't say it, sing it. If you can't sing it, dance it.
And a lot of people, like jazz, what jazz was a way of singing in a way that, or making music in that way. I mean, we still dance as a society. But, I in my work, I see ballet, I see musical theater, I see all these other dances, and they're so controlled. Even modern dance, even some of the freeform dance, it amazes me how much structure we have to put on something like dancing, and because we overthink it. I mean, choreographers are trying to control something that's uncontrollable. And
And so there's two things you evoke really good. Sam Wasson wrote a book on Bob Fosse, the great choreographer, you know, all that jazz. And he says, Bob Fosse's dancers dance like they didn't know how to dance. And then, you know, I mean, I read Rudy Perez, one of the great New York dancers, and then he moved out here to California. One of his dance pieces was he sat on a stool and smoked a cigarette. So that, like, it was that's all it was. It's like, well, he did normal kind of dancing things, but that one piece was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I get to see some people like Merce Cunningham and
Yeah, Merce.
One of my best friend, her brother was one of his lighting designers for a while.
Nice.
So I got to see a lot of that stuff, and like being in the arts and being in theater, I get to see just ridiculousness of everything, and it really brings me pleasure and inspires me just to see that. So
yeah, and Merce is a good example. Okay, here's two from Alan Turing in the 50s. One, is thinking a function of the soul?
One has to believe in the soul, and you have to define the soul, you know. So is the soul a religious thing? Is it a spirit? Is it my my energy? So my energy keeps me alive. So I mean, I guess I don't know. Some of this gets a little bit past my ability to
No,
think.
that's basically, I'm all for saying, I don't know, I can't answer it, and going off on tangent stories and anecdotes. In other words, you don't have to answer the question.
Sure.
They're just prompts to say whatever you want, you know. So that's good. So the second Turing question is, can machines think?
Yes, because we are machines. We are biological machines. So yes, machines could think.
Yeah.
Now, can non-human machines think? I mean, this AI stuff scares the living you out of me. Not because I think it's going to take over the world, but I think we're going to lose so much from it. We're going to lose so much texture, so much. You know, when I was in graduate school, I hated digital. I was a photography student, and I did silver gelatin. I did printing. I stayed away from digital. Now I've embraced digital, and I found a way to work with it and still keep it exciting in the accident. Like, I'm obsessed with the accident.
Nice.
You don't think the accident happens, and then you pivot. And I'm obsessed. Like, my job is it's chaotic. It's boredom with these moments of chaos where everything is going wrong, things are falling, actors are not where they're supposed to be, things breaking, and you have to somehow slow it all down and make it work within that. And I've always loved chaos. So chaos there,
Beautiful. Beautiful. You're really articulate and concise. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ken. Now, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Meaning.
Yeah. Well, I got it from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning book. He says happiness doesn't tend to last, meaning tends to last.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I get called a very unhappy person a lot. People always think I'm really negative and dark, and I just don't understand. I don't see that. I consider myself a happy, positive person, but I love darkness. I'm not afraid of talking about really negative things and laughing at them. I mean, I think it's family history, knowing that like half my family, went up in smoke in the 40s, and a lot of them we use humor when I was a child to deal with those kind of things that you can't think of as a kid. Like Mel Brooks is a great example. Somebody like him who could take some of the darkest, worst things in the world and you laugh, and that's awesome. Making people laugh is the best. I wish I was a comedian.
Yeah.
No,
that's really articulate, and I love it because it's smart. And I'm in a Carl Jung reading club, and I don't know, it's hard to get them for me, but it's fun. And they always talk about integrating your shadow. So if you can integrate your shadow or negative or darkness, all the power to you. You integrate it in. You don't have to obsess on it. But does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I see so many people hiding from reality lately, and my whole life I've seen people hiding from the reality that's in front of them.
Yeah,
And, they join cults, they join religions, they join other things hiding from reality.
yeah,
So it's like, I think I mean, that's, yeah, no, I think we hide from all that.
yeah,
It's, I don't think most people don't trust their own eyes. They don't trust their own
yeah.
ears. So, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, but it's more like consciousness. Is it us detecting it or us creating it?
We create our own
Yeah,
reality. So, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how people could do true evil. Like I said, I'm fascinated by dark things, and dark things to me,
yeah,
not violence, not that kind of
yeah,
darkness. I don't enjoy violent movies and stuff. I don't get excited by violence. I don't like watching boxing or football. But
yeah,
I've never understood how one that has a choice of giving love or kindness to people and watching the reaction, and they're doing the opposite. Like,
yeah,
so like the consciousness that they're creating, like
yeah,
I just, yeah, it confuses me. And,
yeah. But
it-
that's sort of, you feed into it. You don't push it aside. You use it as an impulse to go further, it seems. But you're anticipating so many questions we're getting into. So I really appreciate this. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
well, if I want to be all sciencey, the brain is a chemical electro computer, so it's same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a poet, Andre Lord. She said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Her colleague Yvonne Rayner said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest? And it doesn't have to be tangible.
Saying no.
Saying no is a great tool. Saying no. I
I mean,
never get.
that whole movie where it's say yes, yes, yes. I'm like, yes is gonna mean so much more trouble than to saying no. So that is
Well,
my
to me, that's being discerning if you're saying no.
yeah.
But what new toy do you suggest?
Something fast.
Yeah.
I When I was in California, when I was living there, would go to land speed racing in El Mirage, the desert, and it was a truly spiritual experience. Like, quiet at night, would go there at night. I had an old '70s Dodge Dart, and you turn into that off the road, and you're just going for miles on this dirt path with nothing in front of you, and then you camp in the morning. You wake up to these loud engines, and and you jump on a motorcycle and you just go fast, and like the speed, like that's my happy place is speed.
Wow.
Thrill.
Like that.
Yeah.
Speed thrill. Okay.
And speed kills, but
Yeah,
whatever.
really good. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I'm not waking up. No, I'm kidding. At my age, no, I'm just kidding. You know what? I worry about everything. That's
Yeah.
just who I am. Yeah, fear is I worry about my job. I worry about, what did I say? Is that going to come back to bite me? I'm a little paranoid when it comes to life. So yeah, yeah.
McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, can I ask you the question Marshall probed his whole career? Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I mean, fear is the most one. People are scared to not understand something. I mean, my work sometimes is overt and obvious. I mean, I have a series now where it's about as overt and in your face as possible. And I have a lot of other pieces I've done creative over the years. It's very subtle, very technically.
Yeah.
People are scared to admit that they don't understand, and that fear of it's like we have people right now in charge of us that are scared of the intellectual. They do everything they can to destroy the intellectual because they're feared of being called stupid and ignorant. When some of the smartest people I ever know had a first grade education or got kicked out of school. Intelligence is not based on knowledge, but it's openness to understand and to change.
Yeah.
So
Do artists have moral obligation?
I think humans have a moral obligation. I think artists being a voice of, I mean, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back. Artists were the best. We are. But like I said, history is taught by art, what's left
Yeah.
behind. So
Love that.
I think we do have a major obligation to inform and to question things. And my mother, if she's watching, hi, is terrified of my voice, with my art, with my mouth, that bad things are going to happen. You know, but I feel I have a moral obligation to question.
Yes, I agree. You're really right on in my whole philosophies. So, are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Well, the unknown is the unknown, and fearing the unknown is a very natural state of human existence. But the old ideas coming back and becoming the new old ideas scares the out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm seeing that right now. Like all living in the middle of a dystopian society is quite an experience. It's
Yeah.
I really feel like I am a frog. I'm in the boiler, and I'm getting kind of hot. I need to jump out.
That's good. I interviewed this guy I really love, and he goes, "I'm a literary hack." I goes, "That's what I want to be when I grow up." But I say I'm a scamster. I'm a fraud, and all that. And I think that is the job of art. It's just how you interpret it. But anyways,
Kind of like
can
what
you
we talked about in the beginning, about quack artists, because I call myself
quack artist is amazing.
because to me, even though I believe in what I do when I'm telling a message, at the same time, I'm full of it. Who cares about what I think or say? Because my art sells, it doesn't, or gets published, or like, why am I important in that conversation? It's all a joke, and
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, I'm suckering you into believing my opinion, or I'm making you interact with something, and I love that power. It's.
Totally. That's so good because I do feel you're a grounded, sincere human being, but you're willing to say that also because the most watched TED talk in the history of the world is "Fake it to make it." But check this one out. You'll love this, Ken. The Eric McLuhan, Marshall's son, taught me this. The word "to make" in Latin is the root word for fact and fake. Because whether you're faking it or stating a fact, it's making. That's the bottom line etymological root. So it's sort of funny. So can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Looking at my feet. I is looking at my feet, and I had a bar because my foot was a little bit messed up, so I had a bar that was bringing it back. And I remember as a kid having this bar and kicking my crib.
Yeah.
So I must have been under one. One. I mean,
Wow.
that's that's my earliest memory, is making noise.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Well, it depends on your past, your history.
Yeah.
It's perspective. That's all about perspective. Because
Yeah.
I have a lot of bad memories, but I have some amazing good ones. Seeing
Oh,
my son for the first time. I mean, my memories are important to me. So
beautiful. So tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, and what specifically was the impact?
wow. Um, Probably my grandfather, in a way, because my parents had to deal with all my childhood issues, all my disabilities, all my needs, where they had to keep their sanity, and they couldn't be optimistic in a way that my grandfather, who didn't have to deal with those day in and day out, was always positive about me, always talking, saying things that a parent could not, because they're not in the fight in the same way a parent is. So, my grandfather was very inspirational. He was a boxer, went through the depression, all that kind of, he was a union man, and he was, being his grandson was amazing. Being his son, I don't know.
Yeah.
He was a tough guy, and he could be a great grandfather, but he was probably, from my uncle telling me, he was a tough father, And my parents too, they went through all this stuff with me too. So it's hard to pick. My sister helped. Everybody helps.
Yeah.
Family,
No,
wife.
it's good. It's good what you said, because that's often people say one of their grandparents, because the parents are trying to raise you, and the grandparents saying, "Let's eat popcorn and walk around in the field,"
Yeah.
But what he did, he seemed to give you positive attitude.
Yeah,
You know?
I could do it. He never, everybody was so it's like my son. Give you a quick example that kind of goes up. When he was in nursery school, the teacher was like talking about holding him back because because he was having trouble with scissors, cutting something. But maybe
Yeah,
he should stay in kindergarten for another semester or so. But he could remember his phone number. He could remember his address. He could, he had incredible, language skills. All these things that you can't teach. There's something he has. We're learning to cut something with the scissors. You could learn out of that. You could,
yeah,
So
yeah.
kind of lost myself there, but I hope you get the gist of what it was.
No, I got it. Same question outside your immediate family. Someone who had an impact on you, and what was this impact?
Oh, God. Probably my teacher from junior high, Mrs. Chin, and she was the first teacher. Before that, I would call those teachers warehouse employees.
Yeah,
They kept us warehoused away from the other kids. But she was
yeah,
the first one that called bullshit on ourselves. And no,
yeah,
you guys are not stupid. You're not dumb. I'm going to treat you, with respect. So my teacher, that she drove us in, made me work and find my potential and find that I had something to offer the world and give me confidence to build on. So,
beautiful.
and teachers
Did
are,
you
I mean, it's amazing. One good teacher could change your life.
totally? I get it all the time. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Jewish, but but I consider myself I'm second generation atheist, and my dad was an atheist, but still kind of considered himself Jewish. Judaism is a very complicated religion. You could
Yeah,
be could be an atheist and still call yourself Jewish.
yeah.
You know, it's,
Do you
it's
pray?
I put good thoughts out in the world and hope the energy. I believe in energy.
Yeah,
Energy cannot be destroyed. It just goes from one state of being to another state. So to me, all religions are energy, just fancier wrapper and people bored, and so they make up other stuff to make sense of the energy. So
if God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
sorry.
I
Really good
do get
God.
that. I do get that answer sometime. I love that. Sorry. Yeah,
I'm
would you
sorry.
bring
I don't want to get into the whole religious thing, but the fact that children get cancer, that's it for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
There's no God worth worshiping that lets kids get cancer. That is it for me. There's no other argument that could make me come through that, because I've
yeah,
seen what it does to people and parents.
yeah, amazing. What you touched on this already, Ken. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think people sad. Well, I always tell my son, if he gets bullied, that those people are very sad. There's something going on at their home. Their parents are mean to them. Other people are mean to them. Some bad is going on, and they manifest that anger and the
Yeah,
sadness into action. And we
yeah,
call it evil. We could call it evil. Um, can you have true evil without true good? I mean, you know, I look at serial killers, and is there any good in them? I mean, that's something like, can there be good in a serial killer? Is that possible? Are
Yeah.
they true evil? And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing because who becomes a judge? And we're judging what is evil. A man who sits on a throne and has 10,000 of his disciples get butchered in a war that he doesn't fight in himself. To
Yeah.
me, it's just as evil. Or
Yeah.
ignoring that freedom that those lives cost, that paid for in World War II, say, they saved the world, if you believe, in that. Maybe they did. I mean, the Nazis were pretty evil. So they saved us from that, you
Yeah.
know? And
Well,
now,
that's you're actually touching on the next question, which is an extension of what you're saying. How do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And you sort of said it in the advice you gave your son, but I'll set it up with a few modern thinkers. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, Ken, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
well, you encourage them, I think, more than anything, and the way that humans are. If you are being, say, bullied by somebody, use that example, and depending on how you react, will change how they interact with you. If you become aggressive with them, sometimes they'll be aggressive, or sometimes they'll back down, but a lot of times they'll be aggressive. If you laugh, I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny, or you deep power them in a way, like, oh, wow, sometimes they back down even more. So to empower your enemy is to acknowledge them sometimes. Yeah, I mean, but uh, you mean you cannot ignore your enemies. I mean, I believe in taking people to the mass. Like every chance you get to stop, like my son, with my wife's approval, we have to talk about this when he's of age. But if somebody hurts him or attacks him, or somebody else he's hurting somebody else, tell him to stop. Encourage them not to fight. But
Yeah.
if he has no choice but to fight, you keep on fighting until that person cannot fight anymore, and then you try to help them. Hopefully,
Yeah.
But violence is not an answer, but it's a reality, and it's a scary reality.
Well, again, you're anticipating. Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. My friend said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff? Or does he go, oh, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts, but the basic question is, does punishment work? What do we do? What kind of rehabilitation? Or is punishment the way? I mean, any thoughts?
A beaten dog never becomes your friend. I mean, I I I have luckily never been caught doing anything so bad I've had to truly be punished by society in a way. I've had some incidences where they wanted to punish me, but we have a good enough legal system where I didn't have to worry about that, or I didn't break the law. I
Yeah.
just, skirted the law, and I question that is, it's punishment scares me because punishment is weakness, and
Good, really good. See, your punishment is weakness. Suss that out. What do you mean by that?
well, when our only resort is to punish people,
Yeah.
our society is lost, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing right now happen in this
Yeah.
world. Everybody is so upset. They think punishment is strength. But look at what happened. One of the most disgusting things in this earth is, definitely speaking from a father, but an uncle, a sister, a brother, or whatever, is somebody that molested another child or helps
Yeah.
molest it, and we have a criminal system that's supposed to punish those people. We're seeing in real time somebody who did one of the most awful things we all agree with be given privileges because she's protected. We're seeing the punishment is how good your lawyer is. The end of the day
Oh,
is how good
totally.
your lawyer is.
Well put. It's all lawyer budget. Amazing. So here's the extension, Ken. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" And then Faulkner said years later, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I make a living just tricking people into that. So I have to be careful what I say. But I mean, it's like I always tell my coworkers, a lot of times, like, no matter what, at the end of the day, we entertain people. We make people laugh. We make people happy and enjoy themselves. Why is being in a room filled with other people, watching other people put on a play, put on a musical, watching a film? Why does our brain work? I mean, that's like beyond my knowledge of how the brain actually works, but getting those visual images through
Yeah.
your brain does something. It lets us escape. I mean, escapism is a begin off. There was the kiss. I mean, early filmmaking was showing people things that they couldn't see by travel, because most people didn't
Yeah.
travel. So exotic locations, exotic people. The zoo come to your theater of the
Yeah.
world beyond. It's like people argue that photography freed up. We wouldn't have modern painters. We wouldn't have a Jackson Pollock or Rothko and all those people if photography didn't come, because it
Yeah.
freed people from having to paint ugly fat people,
Yeah.
kings and queens and stuff. It freed up that
Yeah.
to be creative, and
Yeah.
I think people could sit and we're trained for that. I'm trained. I'm watching TV, and
Yeah.
it's how our brains work. So it
Yeah.
tricks us into believing that we're a part of this activity.
It's, we're on television telephone right now. That's what this is, television telephone. And
Yeah,
it was first displayed at the New York World's Fair in 1939.
yeah,
Then it became a reality when the 2001 A Space Odyssey, the guy calls his daughter from the spaceship and wishes her a happy birthday on Zoom, you
yes,
know.
yeah.
And then COVID made it, everybody and their mother is on Zoom going, "Unmute, grandma."
I mean, I've never had a therapist that I've known in person. None of us have therapists that we have ever met.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, and like I said, myself of 30 years ago would have been disgusted by the idea of what we're doing now. I've been like,
Yeah.
I am not going to talk to somebody I never met.
Yeah.
I would have found it just abhorrent.
Yeah.
And I embrace it now because it's a freedom that we could have. That you know
So, Ken, walk us through the sort of through line where your tipping point is to become an artist. What do you study in high school and college, and where did you go? Oh, that's my calling.
I was always making stuff. I was always taking things apart, blowing things up, setting things on fire. I was always trying to manipulate my environment. um, so I always knew that there was something about me that was different in that sense, because I would go to that extra extreme. But when I got in college, my academic advisor, like, "You're going to be an artist," and I laughed in his face. I'm like, "I'm not going to be an artist." And then I actually told the story not that long ago. I met a girl at the bars, and she was going to be at the art school the next day, and um, I decided to borrow my roommate's camera, and I started walking around by the art school. And as she left, she saw me. She's like, "Hey, I met you last night." And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm photographing because I'm taking a photo class next semester, and I'm photographing." And we started dating. So I had to take a photography class. And when I took a photography class, everybody's like, "What are you doing? This is incredible." Like, everything I did made sense. It's like I was able to get all these emotions and feelings. So it was because of a girl. It's because of
Yeah,
lust, you know?
that's beautiful, actually, really cool. And so,
That was embarrassing, but okay.
well, no, I mean it's normal. This is what it's meeting people in how you do it. Okay, so a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. When you're making a Kenco piece of art, it's not an assignment, it's not, a commission for your job. You're making a piece of art, Kenn, piece of art. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Intention,
Yeah.
everything. I mean, my my work lately has been very politically based, so it's all about intention. It's all about me pointing out the hypocrisy of the world and the anger that I have at this world, and a way to stop it, and a way to scream as loud as I can that I've had enough, and I am not going to let what's happening in this world. So I've been very aggressive with my art lately. My work. One of my fellow graduate students went to me. It's like told me that I know myself better than anybody else they've ever known knows themselves, and I didn't really understand what she meant at the time. And then I realized that the catharticness of my art. And I had a professor that loved Gestalt theory,
Oh
and I
yeah.
started realizing, that that's what was happening. I was making pieces talking about these really dark emotions and feelings that I had, and getting them out um, was the most important thing. So my intention of getting, yeah. So it's all about that, and the magic that happens, the things that happen. I don't even know how. Like I said, I get kind of crazy, sleep deprived, when I'm making art, and it's a manic state that I love, even though it's kind of scary because then I can't go to sleep and I pay for my.
Wow. And Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential viewer when you're making your art?
I make art 100% for myself, but saying that, my audience is definitely, without an audience, my art is not as much fun, because I like the reaction, both negative and positive, that my
Yeah.
work creates. I had another professor that once said, I don't do this, but it's the idea of like how to become famous. Find the most disgusting, awful image you've ever seen and go one step further. And I don't believe in that per se of one-upmanship, of
Yeah.
being pocket, but the idea of being provocative with the work. Like I have pieces where they're very provocative, and they make people uncomfortable, and that's okay. I make toys, evil toys, dangerous toys, you know, home home bomb kits for kids, stuff like that, that are a junior executioner where you could press a button and hang somebody or electrocute them, I mean, and that is based on, I know people are going to react to that, both, most people, that's I like, and the puppet masters, like artists are puppet masters.
Yeah.
We need to manipulate our audience into feelings and thoughts, and like I said, narcissism. It all
Yeah.
comes down to narcissism. Artists are the best, and narcissism has been made negative, but I'm gonna make narcissism great again. I'm kidding.
Beautiful.
I'm kidding. But being honest at the same time.
But Ken, McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. Like knife and fork extends our teeth. Shutter and a camera extends our eyelid. Maybe non-tangibles, say religion or philosophy, might extend consciousness. What does the moving image camera extend for you? Like the pixel camera or any kind of, because you have made films in the
Yes.
past and you make films, what does the moving image camera extend for you?
Well, we talked about the Pixel camera, specifically PXL 2000 Fisher Price, how we kind of got to meet. Um, I like that. I like the image that that creates, because to me it resembles the past,
Yeah.
technology of the past. But in projects I'm doing now, it also means the future. Like
Yeah.
I faked the moon landing in one of my
Yeah.
films, where I shot the background with a lander, and the director kept on seeing the line and yelling at, Kubrick and stuff. And, that was a past. That's representing something specific in history, 69, moon landing. But the new series I'm doing is with some modern people, Taylor Green, and I have this little face and she talks, it's remote control. But I'm using the Pixel Vision camera to make it look like we got old technology, we got high def, but now we're going the other way because ideology, our society is going to be regressing. We're going to
Yeah.
lose the ability to make clear images. So now I'm going to use this moving images to create a future, a scary
Oh,
future, dystopian future,
yeah.
and I, you know, I love still photography. I like the, quietness sometimes of the photographs and the, focus on this one still image and you have to create a story within it. Um, and sometimes I think the moving image is an easier cheat. I use it as a cheat, I
As a
think.
cheat. What a great. Okay, so now this is really good because I'm curious how you established your framing aesthetic, like how you frame, because you're both a photographer. You started as a photographer, then you got into filmmaking, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
remain in so you learn something. The cameramen always put their fingers up like that. We're set in both centered in the frame, but
Yes.
what told you how to frame? What's the roots of your framing aesthetic?
Well, I always call myself a squarehead because, like in graduate school, I used a Hasselblad. In undergrad and graduate school, it's a square frame, and
Oh,
um, it's like I had a professor. I had a professor that once said you should never shoot a vertical image because God didn't put our eyes on top of each other; they put them on side. And I always said, well, I see in the square, so what does that make me? But I always saw it in the structure when I take photographs of objects, especially objects or myself, I would frame things very structured with certain lines and you know divide the frame. Sometimes a lot of it is just intuitive. Like I
yeah,
never I never really thought, it just happened in a way. And I I would set up my frame with some structure, and then I would make magic in front of it. I would dance. I would, even though Pollock is too used of a uh, symbol of this, but I would listen to jazz music and dance in front of the camera, naked or jumping up and blur vision and that kind of thing. And I would shoot very few frames. I had fellow students that would shoot 50 rolls on a shot. I would shoot a half a roll, 12 shots in a medium format camera. And out of those 12 shots, I would get one image. And each image was
wow,
different, and it was to me the magic of it. And
yeah,
now a lot of the stuff I'm doing for photograph and film, like I'm building miniature sets. So that's
yeah,
different. Then you're talking about perspective and storytelling, and you have to use a little bit more structure per
yeah,
se. But I have other projects where it's abstract, or I use tools like in the film that you accepted into your film festival. You know, that was a rolling mat. It was a painted background that's motorized. That it's a Cinerama Dome or some Cinerama. They used to have like these 50-foot drums with backgrounds, and the silent films, and the person would run in place, and the background would move and make them look like they were running through the desert or the woods.
what's the title of that film, Ken?
I can't remember. Is my film?
The film you just described.
Oh, it's I
That
was
was in that was in the Pixel Fest.
the one. God, I
Well, anyways, don't worry about it. But you're saying, was it in last year's or it's going to be in
this
this year?
one, this one, this
It's
one.
going to be in November
Yes.
16th.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a painted background, and I'm not moving. I'm looking
Yeah.
straight at the frame, and then I have a dissolve with it, and then I called, like I sent you another version of it. My friend Chris Baker did the poetry or read the poetry, and I was at work one day, bored out of my mind, and I'm like, I'm gonna write some bad poetry, and I sat down and I wrote the worst poetry I can, and I loved it. And
Oh,
I
that
like,
is so cool. You
and
know,
it's like,
there's a great quote. I think it's I forgot who it said it, but it says, "Even bad poetry comes from genuine feelings."
sure, sure.
Yeah,
And I listened to the words that I spoke, and I'm like, I like the words I spoke, that I
right.
came up with, you know.
Yeah,
But, you know, to me, I also have, I was from that era of bad poetry. Would You would go to cafes and people would scream about
yeah,
genitalia and drugs and sex and use
yeah,
the F word every chance I get. So for me, poetry, the words and words and words. Like I said, I like images. So
yeah.
words are lies, even when they're told with good intentions of trying
Yeah,
to make.
that's Allen Ginsberg's line from Howl. I've seen the best minds of my generation, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah,
Ferlinghetti reworded it. He says, I've seen the best minds of my generation bored at poetry readings.
yes, yes, yeah. So but it's like what I ended up doing with it. It's like it was fun, and like the pixel
Yeah,
camera was the perfect vision of it. The moving image. It was like I used moving images, but what am I showing? I'm showing the painted background of clouds moving
yeah,
behind me artificially. I'm showing myself not moving at the
yeah.
in the movie. you know I mean, it's like, Andy Warhol's films are ridiculous and brilliant at the same time, and
Oh,
I've
I
never
love
been
it.
through
Yeah.
them. And it's like that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be so ridiculous. I don't know, like linear, films and stuff that have a beginning, middle, and end. Those are great, and I have no problem with those, you know. But it's like, yeah, I
No, that's good. Godard said it best. He goes, yeah, I believe in beginning, middle, and end of a film, but not necessarily in that order.
exactly. I
Yeah,
mean, we view time as we're born, we live, we die.
yeah,
I mean, that we're creatures of trying to understand that, and we spend all that middle time trying to figure out how to stop the one, and why in the hell did the first one happen?
yeah.
And it's it's an interesting game we play.
Really,
It
really
is a
fun,
game.
Ken.
Yeah.
Really fun. I'm really having a ball with you because I'm learning so much and it resonates. And so I wanted to go back to framing device because, or framing aesthetic, because Jean Cocteau said he learned the framing aesthetic from the way you put the knife and fork on the table, on the dinner table. That's the framing device. And sometimes people don't realize we probably got our framing aesthetic from painters because we looked at paintings so long before we started framing with cameras that we thought, oh, this is how you frame stuff. And,
Yeah.
you being in black and white, I know a lot of your films on your one channel seem
Yeah.
to be more black and white.
Yeah.
I was curious of this. This is Billy Wilder. Black and white is more true than color. Now, why
100%.
would he say that? Because we live in a color world. Why would someone say black and white is more true than color?
Because when you take away color, all you have left is the truth. That's been my line from why I use black and white from day one.
Yeah,
Take away the colors, all that's left is truth. It gets all that other crap out of the way, all that other, I mean, I use color, but I use color when I shoot colors for a reason. I shoot one of my commercials about our evil governor. I make a commercial, like a toy commercial out of the '70s. Well, I have color, but the color is manipulated, and it's how we see. It's the old color. You
yeah,
know, and that is telling a story. That's part of it. But for me, feelings are represented by images that don't have color in them. I
yeah,
don't see color when I think about my emotions, you know? And I can't remember the whole story, but there was a famous story about a director wanting to draw, or a cinematographer trying to, went to the most famous cinematographer. How, how I'm scared. I'm going to shoot this film. What do I do? And he ended up giving him pornos to shoot, you
yeah,
know, about, except, he's like, at the end of the day, you just shoot the action,
yeah,
you just shoot the action. Like, it's not that hard to shoot a film. And that was true for, I think, the whole '70s and '80s films. You look at them, but now, like, A24 and all these other new production companies that let directors experiment and be a little bit avant-garde in the traditional streaming or now streaming, it's
Yeah.
exciting because people are, I mean, it started with, Orson Welles. I couldn't get my shot. I dug a hole in the studio. Now I got my shot. I got a Dutch angle, or
Beautiful.
so it's and that's the thing is like when I do angles, when I do, you know, I've always wondered am I a voyeur? I've always wondered. I always thought I was a voyeur onto my own life.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a voyeur,
Yeah.
and I don't. I never cared about other people's. Like I'm not being a voyeur on them, like about their
Yeah.
lives. It's been my own feelings and thoughts, and like I did a piece of myself as my own stalker once,
Yeah.
and obsessed with myself. And as an artist, is that the only way we could be is obsessed with ourselves, you
Yeah.
know. So it's
Have you ever seen the film Peeping Tom by what's his name? I forgot his name, but check it out. It's a heavy film.
okay.
And I can't think of it. He made Red Shoes. He's a master filmmaker. Anyways, McLuhan said there's no such thing as a good or a bad film. It's a good or a bad viewing experience. Any comment?
So many bad films. I mean, I, don't- I, I mean, it's like me and my wife were watching a film the other day, and it was a romantic comedy, and I like escapism. I
Yeah.
admit it. I like escapism, and I like romantic comedies. I do. Who's Got Mail? I like it. I like crying. I like having movies where I'm able to cry
Oh,
because
yeah.
we found each other. I have nothing wrong with that. But this was so bad, we turned it off. And what made
Yeah.
me turn it off versus another one? The production value.
Yeah.
I mean, so or the storytelling, or like there's all these. Do you ever seen these shorts? I forgot the name of the channel, like something short, but they're like, I'm back, I came back from being in the army, and I'm actually the king of corporations. I'm CEO, and you don't know that, and you broke up with me, and and you're not that, and it's so bad.
Yeah.
It hurts my eyes. So I don't agree with
No, that's fine. I appreciate it because this is Peter Greenaway said cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. So our experimental filmmakers telling stories a different way are doing something completely different because Tony Conrad's The Flicker is just black and white flickering on and off. Now, me and you can have a story go through our head when we're watching it, but it's not storytelling per se. So any thoughts on that, Greenaway? Cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers.
Well, I, I treat I treat even my filmmaking, even though I'm trying to tell a little narrative story within it, I still treat it like I treat my photography and my sculpture, and
Yeah.
a mixed bag of things.
Yeah.
And I do pure abstract, light photography and shape
Yeah.
photography and shape filmed, and I really believe in that. I believe in the haiku, or the haiku of filmmaking, so to speak. That
Yes.
it's structured, but it's structured in a way of whatever, or pure abstractism. I mean, can something be truly abstract? Because nothing is abstract. Everything has something visually. It's going to remind you of the colors, you know. And it's like I think about the dance I used to do with my camera, my filmmaking, and like I said, like I behind me, I have I have some plastic cameras. I used to use those because everybody in my school was so driven by commercialism because we're by Chicago, by St. Louis, and you're going to become a commercial photographer. That was the end goal.
Right.
And I had a professor, Charles Swedlin, that was a master at making his own cameras, making his own film, doing crazy things with film. And the plastic camera takes you away from perfectionism. You're going to have a light leak that's going to destroy half the image.
Yeah.
The happy accident, like I always talk about, it's going to
Yeah.
happen. And that's what I like. So, and I think the storyteller gets in the way so much with filmmaking because most I've read a lot of scripts, before, and 90% of the scripts I read, I'm just horrified by them.
Yeah.
And I still go in the meeting all excited, and we're gonna make this film. And because for me, I don't care if I hate to say this, but I never really cared if it was a good film or a bad film. I
Yeah.
cared about the visuals I was going to be able to create, the
Yeah.
worlds visually, the rooms, the buildings, the props I was going to design. I really only cared about that. And I was lucky and I worked on some good projects that it all came together. But I would read these scripts and I'm just like, it's just they're written by writers, not visual artists,
Yeah.
you know? And I'll
Yeah.
get into
It's
that.
funny how Greenaway says that cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers, because Andrew Noren said if you take one frame and put it next to another frame, that is narrative. That's linear storytelling. Whether both frames are abstract gobbledygook, it doesn't matter. It's like leading on. So this is Michael Apted, great filmmaker. I asked him 40 years ago, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know that Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it flourished in the 80s with MTV. And to the point where Marty Scorsese said, I cut my films faster because of MTV. So when I asked Michael Apted that, he goes, because we've learned to take in information faster. So my question is asked with a bias, Ken, can we literally learn to take in information faster? Or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
I think we're brainwashed. That's totally a brainwashed thing. I think it's a gimmick.
Yeah.
Fast editing is a gimmick because it works off of certain serotonin in our bodies and excites
Yeah.
us. Because fast action means danger.
Yeah.
In the human bodies. And you talk about editors because that's always funny because on most of the film sets where I was like the production designer, where I was the boss of the art department of the look of the film in a way, you know, I worked with the director. He has an image because he wrote the script 10 years ago. He's been trying to get it made for 10 years, and he has an image of what this is supposed to be. Well, there's a reality, and that's budget.
Yeah.
And that's my job, to how to get what he wants
Yeah.
to get in front of him for the cinematographer, who is my enemy. I always tell people, production designers,
Right. That's good. Easier.
cinematographers, even though I love cinematography, I love it, I do it, but they're the enemy because in the reality of filmmaking today, low budget films, I'm not talking about Scorsese, the directors that have 100% control. I'm talking about the first time directors, where I've worked with a lot of first time directors, and they can't run a film set in a way that's going to make the budget work. So the producers always turn to not the production designer because we want to spend money. We want to build that set for $20,000 then that little area that nobody's going to see. They go to the cinematographer and they're like, give me through this day, make the pages. The cinematographer with the editor ends up driving, I think, most films that we see today because it's been made into that. Outside of those few people that get it all, the directors that get all of it and everything they put on there is what they want. But
That's good. But do you think it's literally possible for humans to multitask?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what do you,
My life is on set in a musical, like in film, was something screwed up unless it was like a special effects scene with explosions that you could only set up once. They could say cut and we would reset. But like in my world of musical theater, it is a freight train, it is a roller coaster. Once the stage manager says go, it is happening. And you have to multitask. You're dealing with 20 different things at once. I love multitasking. I believe in multitasking, doing 10 things at once. So
what
I
do
love.
you think what do you think the motive of the cave artist was?
Wow. To paint their dreams,
Yeah.
and they didn't have. I mean, I can't speak for them because I wasn't there, but I would imagine with the knowledge that they lived on what they saw.
Yeah.
What they interacted with every day fed their fears, their
Yeah.
hopes, their dreams. they didn't understand when something was going to happen or why it was happening. You know, they didn't know why their girlfriend or their, I don't know if that girlfriend, but their partner just got eaten by a lion. They don't know where she went, you know, or why, you know. So they needed to recreate, try to find control.
Yeah.
Art, you know, it's all about control. And by painting it, it either depowers it, and now they feel like they have some control over the environment, or they started worshiping. I mean, that's where religion came from, fear of the
Yeah.
unknown and trying to get control and stop being scared all the time. You know, I
What's
mean,
more, yeah, that was good, Ken, because what's more important, conviction or compromise?
well, compromise is more important because that tells you who you are, what you compromise on. Tells you more than you are than just being stubborn and saying, no, even though we talked about that earlier. But I mean, I've had to learn how to compromise, and how much I'm willing to compromise is everything to me. What am I gonna, I love what I do, but I work making other people's visions, come true.
Yeah.
Nobody's making my visions come true but myself and the few people that believe in me and whatever. But I'm saying is like, so to me, that's a huge compromise from my pure artistic talent. But I try to work on good projects now. I really do. But I'm still making somebody else's vision come true, not my own. So to me, that's a huge compromise. But it's a reality of living. So I have to
Great,
deal.
because I always say when people say compromise, because 80% of people say conviction, I'm like, there's no right or wrong answers, Ken, but that one you got right. Because I want people to say compromise. I think it is, but T.S. Eliot said poetry's outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Chaos. I
Oh
mean,
my
even
God,
the
you really
emotion.
got that chaos. Well,
But see,
this is,
I don't know. Like every time I finish a piece of artwork, I think it's my last piece. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm never gonna be creative again. I'm never because I have this weird mental block. I don't. It's almost like I don't believe in myself, and except I totally do believe in myself that I'm gonna be able to create again. Because it's so exhausting. Of
yeah,
the process is so exhausting of being creative and fighting the journey within a piece. Even though some of my pieces are more structured now and more technical than they used to be. Like I always say, technically I was awful when I first started, but conceptually they were amazing. And now I can make anything with my hands right now in my experience. If I think it, I know I could get it into the
right.
physical world. But those ideas are harder to find now as you get older. And why
Wow.
is that? I've
Well,
always
it's
wondered, why is that?
it's a great question. That's what this series is about, is inventing new questions and new metaphors. So that's beautiful that you said, why is that? Because two of my film heroes say there is no self-expression. Jonas Mekas says, ignore, or George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas says there's no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I mean that in a nice way. I don't understand the question in the sense of I
Yeah,
don't know.
is it like, are you more like Dante prayed to the muse to, inspire him? Do you think, no, you've studied artists and you are an artist, are they more vehicles for this environment, or are they more self-expression? I know it's both. It's a sort of stupid question, but just that conundrum, is it more a vehicle or is it more a self-expression?
I've always called myself an overeducated outsider artist, you
Yeah.
know, and what I've always meant by that is, yes, I know too much about certain things, how to
Yeah.
manipulate things because of what has worked in the past with
Yeah.
people. Um, but am I a vehicle for something? I mean, I have to say, I don't know where it comes from. I mean,
Yeah.
so it's you know like how you continuously are able to recite quotes and like my brain doesn't work that way. I have a
Yeah.
hard enough time remembering. I can't remember my wife's phone number. I can't
Yeah.
remember certain famous artists, but my brain doesn't work like most people in that sense of how I have every like good. I always say this is I have everything within my brain. I have all the great books, everything I've ever read. I have a photographic memory, but getting them from there out in my mouth or
Yeah.
written down is impossible for me. I am not able to articulate myself except in short bursts of.
But it seems as though that's what your art making is maybe it's like T.S. Eliot saying poetry is outing your inner dialogue. You have this visual pictures and this chaos inside, and you're getting it out through your art. You don't have to get it out through words, but
No.
you said, "Oh, I wrote bad poetry," so But the hidden question, Ken, is really, can art making be egoless?
Ego. Only when you're really young and you're just making pretty colors and shape, you
Yeah.
know? And
Wow.
even then you start getting praise. I mean,
Yeah.
my son makes some artwork and it's chaotic and a disaster, and I praise him because it is his soul coming out. It
It
is,
is amazing.
you know.
So,
And you know what? We spent our whole lives, and there's been movies about that, and there's artists that have lived it that have tried their whole life to go back to that magic time in our
yeah.
childhood. You
Oh,
know,
that is totally.
I live in Houston. I forgot his name. He does all the chicken scratching and child. Like we have a gallery just for him at the Menil. You know,
Yeah.
they loved his stuff. That goes for $10 million for a little.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what he was trying to discover his
Yeah.
inner childhood. Is that
Oh,
possible?
I love that. I think that's what pixel vision is. Hey,
Yes.
the whole point of art is to have that child innocence. Well, why not cheat and use a child's toy? Like an etch a sketch.
But
And it's not cheap.
my family were enriched, so I never could get one of those. I remember seeing them at Toys R Us in 1987,
Yeah.
88, and I could not afford one.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of funny because I spent, the one I bought was fixed by a guy. He went through and cleaned it up. I spent more money on this thing than I did like my first Hasselblad and
But yeah, did you buy it from Patrick, Ben Instruments?
yes, years
Yeah.
when we first started, like 90
Um,
something.
How many years? You've had it since the 90s?
Yeah, it must have been 98, 97. I
Wow.
got it. I remember looking at it on eBay. So I had a computer in 97, 98, and ordering it from the internet. And what was it called? Bent something? I forgot his
Ben Instruments, yeah.
Ben Instrument. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I bought it from him with a little thing, and then I've added to it. And it's
So,
just, I have a lot of footage that I've shot on it. I've never used, or I've not gotten around to it. And it's tough because I love using it, but sometimes it's just a little too down for what I want to do.
yeah.
But it gets me close to it. So like combining the images and actually trying to make it, like I said, faking the moon landing was perfect because it looked like the digital camera, the
Yeah.
CCD camera they had on the moon, or dreamlike or ethereal. It does that so well. But when
Really
I'm
cool.
trying to do a commercial, no, or some, then
Yeah.
but it's and
Well,
it's just
tell me,
yeah.
tell me, Ken, one major element of your creativeness that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years that you've been making art.
An element.
Yeah, or just a theme or a part of your creativeness.
Wow. I think, but that my technical skills and my ability to make things because of technology, I 3D print stuff now for my art. Sometimes it's just structural, mechanical stuff to make things work the way I want to. But being able to learn because of technology and the inexpensiveness of large format stuff, like that has changed my artistic output. And definitely because when I was younger, if I couldn't, I had to come up with solutions that were a lot harder to get to. I mean, a lot of my early work was quack inspired objects that did something. Like I said, if you turn this and turn this, it's going to send a secret power to someone. Or my photography was almost shamanesque. I hate to say
Yeah.
that, but it was, I was performing an activity, where now I'm more literal about my art. I'm more situational. I'm more story driven in the sense of, you know, politicalness, you know,
Yeah.
activism, you know, trying to critique the world and not being happy about it, and but using humor. It's like, if all the little films I make about our governor, you know, Greg Abbott, you know, he's in this little wheelchair, but he's evil Knievel in his wheelchair. And I'm not
Yeah.
making fun of his disability, because I
No.
think not pointing that out, you know, not having him in his wheelchair would be wrong, because that's who he is. That's a human being. There's nothing to be ashamed of. So I'm not going to mock him. But, you know, using that stuff, I have to shoot it in a certain way. I have more limitations sometimes with the stories I want to tell that I did in the past. In the
Yeah.
past, I could be free and naked, and, you know, and be crazy and not care, and make just beautiful images of crazy things. Where now I'm a lot more ID based or storytelling based in that sense.
Well, that's funny because Moshe Feldenkrais says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness.
But
Tell
yeah.
tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Well, I mean, my whole childhood, my learning disability of not being able to speak to people clearly because of my speech impediment, or not
Yeah.
being able to read fast enough to really understand what need, or not being able to write because of my spelling. So all those weaknesses had, you know, either they would have devoured me, or I had to find ways to let out my voice, and
Yeah.
using my hands and my eyes to create visual objects, manipulate the visual world, is, you know, how I did it. So for me, my, you know, I, I always tell, one of my, well, I have lots of family mottos, but one of them is, you know, is basically saying, you know, you don't make mistakes, you know, or like, that was the reason why you did it, not an excuse. You know, like, I don't believe in excuses. I don't believe in sorry. If you do something wrong, you can make up for it. You could, you know, be sad, but that you did it, but you did that thing, that bad thing. So how do you move on from that? If you ask
Yeah.
forgiveness, being sorry. What is being sorry? It's words. But
Yeah.
your actions, did you learn from them? And we live in a society now, nobody's learning from the past, from the present, and it scares me for the future, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Amazing, because you talked about storytelling, and Hollis Frampton said narrative was born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. My question is, can you forget to die?
well, I didn't think that I was ever going to die. I denied the fact that I was ever going to die, even though at any moment I was convinced I was going to die, because
Yeah.
I finished this piece of artwork. You know, unfortunately, I was never scared of death until I got my child, and now I'm terrified of death, because that would
Wow.
be, you know, because I mean, I've had great people in my life that I love, but like, me not being in their life doesn't scare me. Me not being in my child's life scares me, and it's bizarre, because I always thought that was kind of a myth, because people talk about stuff like that my whole life, and I came to being a father very late in my life, so it's an interesting lesson to learn at the, you know, towards the end of
Right.
existence.
Can I ask for 90 minutes? We got about 7 more. Can you go a little longer, or you got to go in 7 minutes?
We can talk. I'm free as much as
Okay,
you want to
good.
talk.
Good.
Ramble.
Good. So there's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So any thoughts on this philosophy? It's not you, Ken, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Well, I always call myself a well-armed pacifist, and a God-fearing atheist. So the God-fearing atheist is pretty much a definition of the duality and dichotomy of my life. You
Yeah.
know, it's like So I mean, I don't know if that answers it. It's kind of
Yeah,
like
no, that's embracing contradiction.
yeah.
How do you find peace of mind?
Oh boy. I don't think I'll ever find peace of mind. I'm gonna always be in chaos.
Yeah,
I don't do drugs because I find that an artificial way of getting somewhere where I'm already at.
yeah.
So I mean, I I you know I mean we yeah I yeah that's
Well, my friend worked with Robin Williams, the comedian, and I asked him, "Can satire be destructive?" And he says that's the job of satire. But if me or you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, some people think dying's destructive. Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
breath of life. Satire is a breath of life. I
Oh my
am a
God.
sarcastic. I am a sarcastic Chicago kid, and it drives people crazy. I have almost gotten beat up because I'm so sarcastic. Because to me, sarcasm is breath, and I can't.
Yeah.
It's like here. Let's see. I mean, this is really not sarcasm, but I show you. So
Oh yeah, that's great. Oh,
okay,
that is a good piece. I
you
like
know,
that.
it's like that to me is political satire,
Yeah.
or I can't really. It's not hooked up, but I talked about Green. Like she
Oh
has
my
this remote,
God.
it's remote control, and her mouth opens up, and
That is a great piece, Ken.
I have a series of these. This is what I'm talking about, where I'm filming them with the PXL 2000 because it's going to be the future where they're in
Yeah,
charge. We've lost the
yeah,
war, and
yeah,
it's looking this war may be over.
yeah.
And they may come for me because I did a piece that has gotten a lot of press because it was our evil guy, a president, and he's doing something to Putin that's very naughty, and that one has gone crazy. And 6 million views here and that. And it's satire, it's political satire, and that's what's hitting. And I'm like, I've never been that kind of guy who's like embraced being accepted or liked in my
Yeah.
art. And the fact that this is hitting is also kind of exciting too. I'm like, finally, certain my satire and my sarcasm is being appreciated because the world's realizing how awful people are. Certain people are. I don't know.
Wow. That was still, those are two really astounding pieces. They really affected me because Utah Phillips said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
My right stop where yours starts. That's like the
Yeah.
anarchy, a true anarchist motto. Because I consider myself for a short time very into the anarchy thing, but not the violence and breaking people's windows. That's not anarchy. That's just mob mentality. But true anarchy is a freedom. It's freedom from rules that society's
Yeah.
trying to put on them. But that actually, if you're a true anarchist, you have an obligation to respect other people's anarchy and not.
Amazing, because etymologically, the word freedom is almost exactly what Utah said, making one's laws for one's own self. So, what does freedom mean to you now?
Well, there's a difference between freedom and liberty. And liberty is won. It's won by usually, unfortunately, historically, blood, where freedom is given or taken away from. That is an external construct. Freedom is to say you're free. How do you judge that? It's slavery. They freed the slaves. But it's somebody giving freedom to people, which is impossible idea that you could enslave people. I mean, we don't understand that in our society, but with liberty, I'm more into like the idea of liberty. you know, that
Amazing.
we are the tools of our own freedom.
Yeah. Can you just help me invent a new question? Because my question is usually, what's the difference between rights and responsibilities? And now I can say, what's the difference between freedom and liberty? But let's go to that. What is the difference between rights and responsibilities?
That, I mean, that all depends on where you are in life. I mean, and what your job is. It's like, if you like, the school my kid goes to, this big uproar because they changed everything a couple of days before school started. They flipped the whole script because they're trying to destroy public schools because they make all the money by privatizing public schools, and that's their end game. And and the school board, when the school board met, they had a meeting yesterday, and I was thinking to myself while watching it, these people up there have a responsibility to my children, to help my child be educated in a way that helps him grow as a human being, and they're not doing that, and and I pay taxes, and that is his right to be educated, you know, so it's like the two kind of came together last night for me, thinking about that
Yeah.
of of you have certain, depending on your choice of career, you have certain responsibilities. And I mean, I know you meant it kind of differently with like,
No,
but
you put it in the context you want. That's fine.
yeah, but I mean, I have the right of freedom. People died for my right for liberty and freedom, and I should be able to say anything I want to say and do anything I want to do until it affects somebody else's rights for their freedom and their liberty. You
Yeah.
know, if if you're against gay marriage, very easy, don't have one. You
Yeah.
know, why does it affect you? Why is somebody else, two people lives that have nothing to do with yours affect you, you
Yeah.
know? And I don't understand why people are so obsessed with other people's lives that have nothing to do with theirs. What gives
Yeah.
them the right to do that to them? They think of a responsibility to God, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you
Is
actually think
is
about it.
perception reality?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Reality is the only word always should be in quotation marks in the dictionary. So
Yeah, Lily Tomlin said reality is just a collective hunch.
yeah. I mean, are we a dream? I mean, when I was a child, I really believed that everything was a dream. I could not
Yeah.
separate reality in the normal sense because it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking really young, like
Yeah.
20, 30. No, I'm just kidding. But no, reality is always about perspective and it's about control. It's like
Yeah.
I have a lot of people in my life that need control. They need to know what's going to happen today, tomorrow, and the next day. They need to know the reaction that I give them is what they expect. And when
Yeah.
anything deviates from that, it throws them into a panic or they don't know how to deal with that. And it makes me go back to like I live in chaos. I have always known that I lived in chaos and I thrive when everything else is going bad. I see things that other people don't see. Things slow down for me, and that's always been. I looked at it as a gift, It, but it makes some people around me kind of edgy because it's always, something's happening, chaos, craziness.
Ah! So these are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words.
Okay.
One, who started it all?
I think the chicken has something to do with it.
Good. Are we going to make it?
No,
3, where do we put it?
somewhere dark.
4, who's cleaning it up?
Not me.
5, is it serious?
Yes.
All right. So if you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Learn about Bitcoin as soon as it comes out. Farm and
I,
baby mums. I knew
yeah,
people that got into it early, so I have a little history with
yeah,
that. God, what would I say to myself?
yeah.
Good luck, kid.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
I would just say good luck, kid. It's gonna be great, but it's gonna be tough. And love the people that are around you because they'll be gone too soon.
Beautiful. That I left one out and that you led to it perfectly. You retrieved it. In your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements, luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck, skill, and ambition. Me, I think in that order.
Do really, yeah.
Yeah.
Because people sometimes don't like that I give those three. They go, well, there's other ones like purpose, destiny, persistence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I used to ask, is ambition based more fear or joy? And everybody would say, or most people say fear. And then I read Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist. He said, in Hollywood, luck and skill have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition.
Well, the thing is, it's like, I consider myself very lucky that I met that one girl who got me into photography, who got me into
Yeah,
art and sculpture. And
yeah,
then my wife, who I met at college too, but she was still in high school, we were just friends. Um, I met her again when I was in graduate school, and because she was going there for undergrad. And when we met, she became friends, and she got me into jewelry making. I took a
no,
jewelry class, and I was such a bad jewelry maker. To save my grade, I had to make this crazy box with this ugly bug that I tried to make, and the box was beautiful, and it all came together, and that led me to all the things now. So it was
oh,
lucky that I met her at that time. So to me, luck is the most important thing, and it's luck
yeah,
about meeting people and meeting people, and people have driven me the most, and the things they've introduced me to. You know, I you've never heard of me before, so my ambition, my skill got me here, but my ambitions, I'm like, I would love, sure, being famous, that'd be great, whatever, and we all, I remember a lot of people thinking that I would be famous, that my work is something special, and they don't understand why I am not famous. And then I realized this because I don't I don't have that ambition to be there, or I would become a cookie cutter. I would have found what works, and I would have done the same thing the rest of my life, or gotten people to do it for me, so to speak. So,
yeah.
yeah, it's at least I'm just not good at it. I mean, none of us are good. Most artists are not good at selling themselves. You
No,
know,
no, no. And that's the thing. It becomes this commodity who can sell the shit the best. But it's funny because Gary Player, the golfer, says the more you practice, the luckier you get. And then I love these two. I rarely get to say them, but Al Flipside says, don't sell out, sneak in. And Schrader, the player, taxi driver, screenwriter said, the job of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail.
I like that one the best. I like that
Yeah,
one. But like, the golf player, you look at golf these days, and they practice, practice, practice. But if you look at how many hole in ones are being
yeah,
achieved now, and you look at the equipment, but the equipment is just part of it. So is it luck? Is it the technology? Is it the
yeah,
practice that's
yeah,
making hole in ones? I mean, I'm not a golf player, so I can't get into all that stuff, but I just know that is something that's been talked about lately. And
yeah.
I mean, can you say the last quote again? I want to hear that again.
Yeah, it's Schrader, because I really would love to psychoanalyze it. He says the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. Now, I take it this way. Most people go, oh, that's cool. And I take it this way. Oh, my art is so authentic that I tried to sell out, but I failed. So, I mean, it can be taken different ways, but it's sort of like, it's
Well,
however you want, the context you want to put it in.
it's like being a pretentious artist is part of the game too. I mean, when I used to do a lot more gallery shows, this gallery is risking the rent, to have
Yeah.
me sell. I was a salesman. I needed to sell myself. I needed
Yeah.
to come up with a persona, and
Yeah.
sometimes I do well and and sell myself as the weird, quirky artist that's always. But I make art because I have no choice. I will die without it. It is
Yeah.
something. It is my breath. Like So but all that other stuff is just the nuts and bolts of it. You
Yeah.
know, and I mean, selling out to me is something that's always been on my mind because I do think selling out is bad.
Yeah.
But to me, selling out isn't making art that sells, that makes you money. Because money is not the evil, it's what you do to get the money, which is evil.
Yeah.
I make my money entertaining, helping people get entertained. So I
Yeah.
can make my art and not give it to if it sells or not.
Okay.
I don't make a living with my art. I use the skills that art has taught me to make a
Yeah.
living.
Yeah. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Well, it has to be over because according to the patent that was submitted to
You're right. That's a but 80% of people say over. There are some people who say under, and they have their reasons. If a publisher was going to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Oh God, that's a great question. I did it my way. No, I'm kidding. Um, I would have to say F it. But
How do you
spelled out. F it. F-U-C, okay. I don't want to swear. I think you're allowed
Oh,
to
FN. Oh, that's good. I like that.
F it.
Asterisk, asterisk. So
Yeah, that's
they
my
want to,
family motto. That's in Latin. I have it in Latin. That's our family motto.
yeah. And so they want to scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography. What smell?
Strawberry.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Bronze, naked, in front of the White House. With a
No.
big finger going up. Because I want to I mean I like all this I like that there's certain things that it's okay. You don't have to be an artist, you can just be angry and do
Yeah,
something, you
I
know?
love that. If tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good that I've never had that I would never want.
Yeah.
I could almost honestly say I've gotten everything I've ever wanted.
Wow.
I mean, I don't sure, if I had more money, I would have more things. Better cars or a bigger house.
Yeah.
But I think about all the adventures I've gone on, all the amazing when I worked in Hollywood, I worked with some of the most amazing artists I've ever experienced that are never going to get the credit that they deserve, you know,
Yeah.
and made me look good most of the time, because
Nice.
I manipulated them and helped them get somewhere because I had my own thing. But,
Yeah.
so, but, at the end of the day, I've never, everything I've ever wanted or tried to get, I figured out a way. My parents weren't rich. I've worked for everything. Everything I own is paid from sweat because I
Yeah.
do a physical job. I'm a blue collar worker. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, I do physical work. So I've earned
Well,
everything.
the
So
three answers I get the most, Ken, are fame, money, and heroin.
I think if I found out me and my best friend always talk about if we find out we're dying, we're going to go to Amsterdam and just, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm not going there. That's just done.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Throw up because I hate smells. So I had, you know what? I'm the first male member of my family that ever changed a diaper. My dad attempted once and passed out with my sister.
Wow.
But my wife, from day one, when we decided to get a child, to adopt a child, was I had to change diapers, and I had to do it with nose plugs. So because I cannot handle the smell. So yeah, I would throw up in a heartbeat. And if it was a Mr. Beast thing, my son would be happy because I just won a Lamborghini for him. It's a
Yeah.
thing. I don't understand it either.
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, it's actually the dumbifying of America. It's the stupidity. It
Yeah.
inspires me to make work, to make art. I'm
Yeah.
inspired by the lack of compassion
Yeah.
and creativity
Yeah.
and the fight against it. I mean, you know, July 4th, I mean, I love this country, and the Republicans do not own patriotism and the flag. And it is part of, our country was built on evilness and stupidity and wrongness, but it has a possibility of greatness. And
Yeah.
that is why we are here, to do that. And the fact that these people are so against, I mean, the Kennedy stuff. I mean, 2004. I mean, next year. I'm sorry, July 4th. We're gonna have ultimate fighting on the White House to celebrate I mean, come on. I mean, when he wrote that movie, nobody knew he was gonna be that accurate. I mean, it's just insane. It's
Yeah.
just I can't say the word right. Idiocracy.
Oh yeah. Wow. Well, a couple more and we're out of here, Ken. This has really been fun. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Why the hell am I here?
That's it. How has making art shaped your behavior?
Shaped my what? I'm sorry.
Shaped your behavior. How has art making shaped your behavior?
It's given me a confidence, and like some people, like I said, like egotist, or my confidence got me through life. And
Yeah.
I think if I didn't find art, I would have gotten into some really dark places, and I don't think I would have survived life. I think I would
Yeah.
have ended it one way or the other. So
Wow.
um, I mean, art saved my life. And I always joke, I always say I have a book that I was working on. I photographed all this trash I found for a year and a half after I left LA. In 2 weeks, I lost my place, which is an amazing loft in LA. I paid nothing for, that I lived in for 9 years. My girlfriend broke up with me. My car got hit and run and destroyed. And my job, the writer's strike took away my job, all within like 2 weeks. And I moved to Arizona, and as a temporary thing, but whatever, I just ended up on couches, my parents' place, as an adult. And I always joke that trash saved my life, because I started
Yeah.
in the desert, and I started photographing trash, and that led me to other things. And it's funny, the things that end up saving your life sometimes. It could be
Yeah.
small little things, and it could be the most disgusting thrown away. I mean, the idea that people throwing stuff in the desert and me focusing on that and making it beautiful saved my life. And
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a dumpster diver for 40 years, man, and I find all my art supplies, all my art in dumpsters. I mean, I found pixel vision stuff like the belt, like like what, whatever.
but
So
that's why I just want to go back to my grandfather owned a secondhand store, and
yeah,
it was also new furniture too. But he would take me dumpster diving, and
yeah,
he had a big old stake bed truck and picking up stuff until he was 60s, 70s. He was putting refrigerators, fixing them up and stuff like that. So yeah, to the what we throw away is truly tells who we are as a society.
it's an anthropological dig I'm doing every morning.
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous. The one bad side though, Ken, I have to admit, is people go, "That's so cool! You found that! Wow, wow, wow!" I mean, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And they go, "That's so cool." I says, "No, it isn't. It's like I go to Walmart or Costco every day and I don't pay. What's the difference? I'm still a fucking consumer, So the
It's
shit
so
piles up, but I mean, yeah, I mean it's just like being discerning, like what can I carry home on my bike? I found the Joseph Cornell book with poetry and it's like art. It's like amazing, and people throw this out. So
Well, it's like also when I started finding in the desert, taking these photographs of trash, I started taking the trash home, bullet casings, and then I found these metal, and I made these angels
yeah,
out of rusty objects. I made all these angels. I was going to make 1,000 of them, like the 1,000 cranes,
Yeah.
Yeah, I only got up to like 300, I think. But it's like that also saved my life. And the angel, I made the traditional kind of angel, but it wasn't meant to be a religious angel. It's more to be like
Yeah.
a rebirth almost of wings and all that kind of, symbolism, objectivism. But yeah, no. So it's really interesting how this conversation is reminding me of so much. I really
Yeah.
appreciate.
It's really been fun. So Thornton Wilder said in 1928 that art is confession. Art is the secret told, but art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
You mean art making?
Well, you put in the context you want. You can say life, art making, whatever. Yeah.
You know, the things that make me happy is making art, making love. I mean, I know that sounds weird, and I don't mean that in the sexual sense. I meant love. You know,
Yeah.
you love giving your heart to somebody, truly
Yeah.
believing in yourself and somebody. You know, your
Yeah.
family, and a lot of us are missing that. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
have that. So, you know, the pursuit of life and breathing and love and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Those
it's
are
the reason
so
it's the reason
important.
I exist. It's and all the other crap I have to do, like feed myself, wash myself, go to work, all that is just the nuts and bolts to run the machine that I
Yeah.
love. So
No, there's a guy who was homeless in Venice. His name was Eden Abe. He wrote a song called Nature Boy. It's huge,
yes,
huge song.
Nat King Cole, yeah, for Nat King
Yeah,
Cole,
Nat King Cole made it. And it's a simple line. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return.
yeah,
Pretty simple.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I always tell my son, love is love. All we need is love, and
Yep.
those are famous quotes by famous people, but it is so true because at the end of the day, the only person that makes you happy is the people that you love, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
What gives you the most optimism?
my kid. I mean, I always thought people were full of it when they would say stuff like that. It's like, you know, seeing him
Really?
grow reminds me of why I did everything that got me to that place. I mean, he's a great reminder of how precious life is and how important it is to leave this world better than you got it. And we make fun of the hippies from the '60s. I would have been more of a beatnik, a little bit darker than the hippie dippy kind of
Yeah.
love everything. I like the darkness of the beatniks a little bit better. But the one thing they taught us is, when you really try to do something, you could really fool yourself and believing you accomplished it
Yeah.
because they didn't
Well,
accomplish anything. At the end of the day, they all grew up to be just like everybody else, like their fathers. So
well, the first question I ask is what's the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said, the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question I asked, which you answered like most people do, they go youth, the young people. And it was what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. And he said, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you, Ken. Thank you so much for your time and energy, man.
I appreciate it. I look forward to the film festival that got us there. So
Yeah, that got us together. So Pixel This lives in November, and you'll be part of it, the 35th annual. I can't believe that festival's 35 years old. You're
crazy.
so, you're entering at a good moment. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope this never ends, Ken, and we can keep talking forever and ever. Thank
It'd be
you.
awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, man. This was really fun. Thanks.